Welcome to CXQA Live, the home of the agent-centric contact center philosophy. Every week, we talk about how agents who are properly connected with the right training and tools with your company are going to be the best revenue growth and protection center for your business. They're going to be an amazing diagnostic tool. They're going to ensure that your customers are satisfied and connected. They're going to want to produce more and better work, and they're going to want to stay and contribute to the long-term success of your company. Now, today on the show, thrilled to have back with us Dave Seaton. And Dave helps customer experience leaders to create compelling customer journey maps that empower organizations to grow profitably by serving the needs of their customers. Welcome back on the show, Dave.
Thanks, Rob. Great to be back.
It's been many times you've been with us, so we're glad to have you again.
Yeah, I think we should, in fairness to the viewers, we should let them know that we just figured this out yesterday. So,
yeah, I think that is fair. I think that is
so this is going to be raw and off the cuff, which, in my opinion, makes for great shows.
It does, and more importantly, it's content, it's ideas, it's stuff that already just kind of wells up out of you, that you've already shared some publicly, and that's core to the way that you guide organizations to think about how they engage their customers. So for that and many other reasons, I'm really pumped that this is what we're going to be talking about. So, I don't know if any of the guests were involved in signing up for today's episode through the post that was put out. But we're going to be talking about CX Whac-A-Mole. So I was half tempted to put on my top hat and get some, arcade tickets out and, do the whole shtick. But at the end of the day, right, CX Whac-A-Mole is what we're talking about. And Whac-A-Mole is an arcade game. And in this arcade game, you've got this fake patch of land, and these moles keep popping up through different holes. And you have this mallet, and you're supposed to hit all the different moles as soon as they pop up. And if you don't hit them quick enough, then they go back under. You don't get any points from that mole. And then it's almost like you can't keep up, and and it's a lot. So, what is CX Whac-A-Mole, Dave?
CX Whac-A-Mole is that find and fix mentality where you get customer feedback, a pain point, and you go whack that pain point. But in doing that, another mole, another pain point pops up somewhere else, so you go whack that. And you're doing a lot of activity, but you're not actually improving the overall customer experience. And in the worst cases, you're actually making it worse. In the article, there's an example of a company I worked with, and they were very siloed. Each department was very aware of the customer pain points, and so they deployed technology to ease those pain points. Let's create a knowledge base so customers can self-serve. Let's create a training portal so that, customers can watch training videos. Let's create a support ticket portal so that they don't have to call us. They can enter it over the web. And customers had 7 different portals, 7 different username and password combinations. The passwords had different security requirements. They expired at different times. And so the customers were confused and frustrated because they didn't know where to go and log in. I had one customer tell me, I got to keep a spreadsheet just to remember what each of these sites is for and what my password is, so I can figure out where to go when I get help. So all of the departments were whacking their moles, but they weren't thinking about that end-to-end customer experience and how their actions were actually sub-optimizing that customer experience.
Wow. I think most of us probably have had a company that we've dealt with as a customer where we felt a bit like this, where you're not sure the different parts or components or how it all relates. But if you think about all the things that you're supposed to provide and all the different things that can come up, it's easy to see how you fix one thing and it causes 2 more problems, right? And in the most severe versions. You're just constantly chasing that from one thing to the next. So, I mean, what's the antidote, Dave? How do we avoid this?
The antidote is to zoom out, adopt what I call a customer journey perspective, understand from the customer's eyes what that journey looks like and what the most important moments are in that journey, both positive and negative, and then go intentionally design your customer experiences to focus on those moments that matter. Because every company's got limited resources, right? You've got a limited amount of time, limited amount of people, limited amount of money to go get things done. So I want to be very focused on what's the minimum effort to produce the maximum result. And by result, we're talking about improving customer experiences in a way that generates financial outcomes for the business. Customers stay longer, they buy more, they tell other people, and they behave in ways that cost less to serve, as my buddy Jim Tincher would say.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. So journey perspective really is taking on the perspective of the customer as the customer goes through the journey of being a customer, and understanding what is most important and building the interactions and the tools that help those interactions and the training and all the things that the agents are equipped with to maximize what matters to the customer in that journey. Did I get that pretty much right?
Yeah. Imagine, a contact center that goes through this huge transformation to get more efficient, to reduce hold time, to reduce resolution time, improve first call resolution. But the business as a whole never addresses the problems that are causing customers to call in the first place.
Yeah. I feel like I may have experienced that.
Right? When we do, I use a tool called a customer journey map to help organizations understand this. And in the customer journey mapping process, the different silos begin to understand how decisions that they make impact other parts of the customer journey. For example, somebody in marketing says, wow, I never realized how these promotions that I create really overburden the contact center with customers calling in, either to get the offer or because they got questions about the offer, or because the offer expired and their price went up, whatever it is. The decisions that marketing's making in a vacuum are impacting the contact center. Even within a contact center, talked to one client who customers were complaining about the hold time. So the client worked really, really hard, and they got their hold time down to an average of 19 seconds. But they did that by pushing a lot into the IVR. So now customers had 2 minutes in the IVR before the hold time clock started ticking, right? We call that squeezing the balloon. If you got a balloon, you squeeze some air out of the middle. Where does the air go? Goes to the other side. There's still the same amount of air in that balloon. You just pushed it around, right? And that's the CX Whac-A-Mole hamster wheel, to merge all our analogies here, right? Is you're whacking those moles and you're just pushing off the friction into other parts of the experience.
Yeah. And without a cohesive view of the whole experience, that at least is a reference point,
right?
It's hard to even have a good conversation across departments and in a way that avoids the whack-a-mole scenario.
Yeah. If you're a CEO, CFO, every single department is coming to you for 2024 and they want to spend money. We need to buy this new software system. We need to invest in more people. We need to do a marketing study. We need R&D. We need more developers, right? Everybody's coming to the CEO and the CFO with wanting more money, and the CFO's got to decide, of what we've got to spend, where am I going to apportion it out to make the biggest impact? And that's where the journey perspective, looking at the entire customer journey, understanding what are those moments of truth that have a disproportionate impact on the customer's experience, helps you make those strategic decisions about where to invest.
That makes perfect sense. And Shafiq mentioned in the chat, there are a lot of situations where, customer support leaders might be disincentivized to actually get to the root causes, to actually think through these larger big picture journey level sort of ideas, because the way that they're paid, or the way that the company is actually being paid in the case of a BPO, suffers if there isn't as much work to do, right? So it's almost like we're incentivized to have more moles to whack. So why would we reduce the number of moles that we need to whack? And we're happy to wear our arm out because we're getting paid.
Right.
Right. And so and there's sort of this acceptance of chaos, and it really distances the business from the customer. And ultimately, that's where the rub is, that I think a lot of C-suite leaders certainly miss, is the way contracts are structured, the way employment is measured and compensated, and basically what we are incentivizing employees and subcontractors to do actually works against the business outcome goals of the business in many cases. And I think that there is, in a lot of cases, just a rub right there. It's just a friction.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we did a show about that a couple months back. Behavior follows incentives, right? And the unintended consequences of driving your business towards a metric, because people figure out ways to hit that metric, and those ways may not be what's best for the customer and ultimately what's best for the business. Working with a company right now that sends field technicians to customers' homes to install stuff. Okay. That's all you need to know to get this thing. The technicians are incentivized by the number of installs that they do. Okay. But after the technician finishes the install, it can take 15 to 30 minutes for the equipment to start working. So what does the installer do? He says, all right, I'm all done here. Just wait 30 minutes and it'll work. And he leaves because he's getting paid to go do more and more and more installs. How does the customer feel? They're concerned because, they scheduled this appointment. They took time off work. They were available between 12 and 4 for their scheduled installation window. The guy shows up, does some stuff, and leaves, and the thing's not working.
Yeah.
And you got to have a lot of trust to be like, okay, I'll wait 30 minutes. So how are those incentives impacting the customer experience, right?
Yeah. 100%. Makes perfect sense. I mean, and we talk about customer experience having a focus on the customer, but there's a difference between, and you articulate that in the article, and I did share your article in the chat, Dave, for everybody to reference. You articulate a difference between customer focus and customer centricity. So maybe you can highlight that, because, it seems like, 6 of one, half dozen of another, but it's much more about the mindset and what you actually bring into the center and prioritize. So I'd love for you to unpack that for us.
Yeah. And that's, those words, that's a major theme in this book by Annette Franz, which is about building customer-centric cultures. So a customer-focused company is giving lip service to, yeah, we're doing this for the customer. There may be, each silo is focused on their own pain points, right? But are not putting the customer experience at the center of everything that they do. And when you zoom out and you have that journey perspective, and you put the customer at the center of everything you do, then you're aligning your corporate culture around the customer, your incentives and compensation around what improves the customer experience. You're placing your big bets on investments around the customer experience in the moments of truth, and everything is focused with the customer at the center of the company.
That makes a lot of sense. And there is a pretty significant difference between the two, really, when it comes down to it, because I mean, Whac-A-Mole is the customer says problem, we fix problem.
Yeah.
But having a journey perspective is to try to get into the bigger picture needs and perspectives of the journey that the customer goes through. So that's being customer centric. And then that culture element is huge, right? Where there's cultural, buy-in on why the customer's perspective matters, taking time to really listen to what's going on with the customer rather than just how quickly can we solve this problem, get them off the phone. And thinking a little bit more deeply about the fact that we might want them to be customers of ours past the next 30 seconds and, going on that journey with the customer and giving that sense for the customer that we are on the journey with them.
Yeah. I mean, a great example, you talk about just hurrying to get them off the phone to keep that average handle time down. Matt Dixon in The Effortless Experience talks about next issue avoidance. What if you could keep them on the call a little bit longer and avoid them having to call back again in the future? An example I like to use is if you call your bank to change your address. Great. Now we're done. I updated your address. But what if the bank person says, hey, Dave, most people who change their address also want to order new checks. Can I help you order checks today? And I'm like, thank you. I didn't think about that, right? Because I very rarely write checks these days, but I sure would have noticed it the next time I went to write a check and I pulled out and I saw my old address there. So that's the idea of next issue avoidance. If you understand the customer's journey, then you can proactively or forward resolve their next issue, and you reduce your overall call volume and provide a better customer experience. Reducing the call volume means that your customers cost less to serve, you lower your operational costs and improve your customer experience. That's it. That's the win-win.
I feel like there's a mental block that happens for most customers when the words are said, is there anything else I can help you with today? Because we know that means we're done. And so our default is, nope, that's it.
Yep.
And so even just changing the language at that moment in the call can make it more likely that you discover and are able to resolve other issues or things or opportunities with that customer. Because I know for me, I've caught myself a couple times recently because I just moved where I'm having a phone call about getting something set up with the new address with a customer service agent, and they come to that moment. And in one case, I even had a list of other things that I needed to accomplish. And when she said, is there anything else that I can help you with today? I started saying no.
Yeah.
Just by default. It was just like my mind said, say no. This is where you say no. This is where you get off the call. But I literally had a list sitting in front of me. And so it occurred to me, wait a minute, there's something rote that's going on here. There's like muscle memory here. And so I think maybe just changing that language, maybe having some predictable, likely things that might be based on what we just helped you with, something we might need to help you with, or the ability to reference that customer's account and see other things that the customer might not even be aware of that could either be an opportunity to fix a problem before it becomes a call back, or maybe it's a genuine opportunity to make that customer's experience better. Now, I'm going to insert the don't upsell at every opportunity sort of warning here, because customers have a mental block with that too. And I've had that happen. And it's true, we all have had that happen where there's a point in the script where they're supposed to go, and I'd like to tell you also about these additional services that are available on your account. And you're like, oh, I'm really trying not to roll my eyes. No, thank you. There are moments where what's technically an upsell can be a value add, but I think getting outside of this rote robotic sort of closing and transition towards the close could be a big help in this.
Yeah. I mean, is there anything else I can help you with? Customer doesn't know, right? You know, you handle how many hundreds or thousands of calls a day? You know,
Absolutely.
right? So build that into your process. And identify those areas. I mean, I remember a couple years back trying to map that out with a company. You know, what are all the main call types that we get? Okay, what are related? How can we put this together? If they call about this, let's also ask them about that.
100%.
Right? Businesses know they've got all the data.
Absolutely. And then, engaging the customer in a way that feels like a value add and not just being pitched. Because as Shafiq said, in the chat just now, the cross-selling, upselling, those moments are there, they're present. And in certain businesses, is a critical component of the revenue strategy and the sustainability and growth of the business. But it's all in how natural it feels and whether it makes sense to the customer and doesn't feel icky, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a critical component. So we've only got about 9 minutes left. So I want to take us down a couple of other paths real quick before we're out of time, my friend. So I think we've covered the overall idea of what we're talking about here, what we're trying to avoid. What are some principles to kind of help leaders think about implementing this journey perspective as opposed to Whac-A-Mole? What are some principles for implementation?
Yeah. So, I mean, let me give an analogy. And the analogy is this: we're comparing gambling at a casino to long-term investing in the stock market. Okay. Both activities can make you rich, but they have different odds of success, different odds of winning, right? You're in a casino, the odds are stacked against you. The casino's figured it out. Sure, some people win big, right? And investing in the stock market, the average return of the S&P 500 over the last 100 years is 10% a year. Okay, long-term investing in the stock market has really good odds. And so, somebody on LinkedIn challenged me and said, you don't need a journey map. Just go talk to some customers. Like I did this. I went and talked to some customers. We fixed their problems, and the customer experience was a lot better. Great. Maybe he hit the jackpot. Okay, but your odds are better if you zoom out, do the work to understand the customer journey. And a tool that I think is really great for this is the customer journey map. And there's different sizes of maps. You can look at the end-to-end journey. You can look at a particular phase of the journey. You can actually zoom way in and map a individual touch point or experience, right? But the customer journey map is always from the customer's perspective, not the business's perspective.
That's critical.
And you have to talk to your customers when you're making the map. You can't do it from your own imagination. You can probably get 70% there out of your own imagination. We know a lot of things about our businesses, but the deep insights that are going to be the game changers are going to come from listening to the voice of your customer. So part of the customer journey mapping process involves talking to customers, doing some qualitative research, maybe some quantitative research as well, depending on the problem you're trying to solve, so that you get the customer perspective and you're mapping the journey from the customer's eyes, not your business's eyes.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. One last question for you. I would love for you to connect this to the agent for us.
Mm-hmm.
How does this help agents to be and to feel more valuable in their work?
So often we find, it depends on the company, but often we find that the contact center or customer support is where the customer has the greatest number of interactions with the company.
Mhm.
And many times our agents don't really understand who's on the other end of the phone. They're not able to empathize with them. The customer journey map allows everybody in the company to understand the customer's story, to empathize with who the customer is. So your agents can, they know who they're talking to. They can empathize with the person on the other end of the phone. One of my clients, I was asking the president, in his opinion, what would be a successful customer journey map? And he said, Dave, it's got to be simple enough to understand that everyone in the company can empathize with that customer. From my contact center agents to my field technicians going to people's houses, all the way to my executive leadership team.
Yeah. I think that's really a critical difference too between having the journey map in place as a reference point
Mhm.
is just chaotically looking at individual engagements. And for the agent, it's a sense of, we all know that this is what our customer is going through, and from that you can have genuine interactions as two humans to resolve that and to provide that kind of empathy. But if we're trying to figure out the basics, if we're trying to figure out what part of what this customer's experiencing does this interaction represent, that makes it more difficult to have an empathetic and genuine connection, which in some businesses, and for some businesses, it's absolutely critical
Yeah.
uh, that they are able to genuinely connect. But also with regard to guidance during the interaction and what's expected to be accomplished, already having that pretty well ironed out is kind of a relief for the agent.
It
We don't
is.
have to create this. We don't have to know this here because we know this collectively, and there's a reference point.
Yep. The other thing I'll say is, while the journey map is important and it's a critical change tool, the process of doing that is what really builds that empathy and that case for change in the organization.
Hmm.
When you've got frontline contact center agents in the room with the marketing people, the product people, right? All of the different organizations, and the blinders are coming off and everybody's seeing the linkages between, what I do in marketing, how that impacts the contact center, what I do in product, how that impacts the contact center, right? Many of those silos, they never talk to customers. Or if they do, it's a focus group or a cab, right? They're not getting the perspective of the contact center agents who are talking to customers every day. I'll also say the contact center agents are just getting the problem perspective for why that customer called in the first place,
Mm.
right? I worked with one company where this particular customer support organization, everybody knew that customers complained about the turnaround time for issues. So they undertook, they went to great lengths to improve the turnaround time for the issues. Well, when we zoomed out and we talked to customers never wanted to contact them in the first place. They wanted whatever tools and applications that the customer support agents had. The customers just wanted access to those so they could self-serve.
Mm.
But that never comes up on one of the calls because they're just talking about the issue they have at the moment, right? You're not zooming out and understanding that entire journey perspective.
That's awesome. Well, this has been really great stuff, Dave. I would
Thanks.
encourage anybody who is interested to grab the article that was in the chat, and we'll post it on the YouTube channel with the recording of today's show. Also want to encourage you guys to hang out with us afterwards, because I'm going to push the big red goodbye button here in a second. But when I do, we're going to be hanging out at the discussion table that's in the lobby where you came through on your way here before we started. And Dave and I, and hopefully some others, will be there, and we can take this conversation further and deeper. But Dave, thanks for being with us, and thanks for leading on the anti-Whac-A-Mole crusade.
Always a good time. Thanks, Rob.
Next week, we'll be talking about CX skee ball. No, we won't. You guys have a great Tuesday. Bye.